Welcome back, rock stars, to another episode of From the Vault. Ricky Rocks coming at you with the retro toy review. Today we're going to be taking a little bit of a detour, doing something a little different today, because this was a bit of a surprise. Was not expecting originally to even have come across this particular item, but the gods of toys smiled upon me that day. That's the good stuff. So, I happen to be at Target and just looking around randomly, and I happen to come across this fucking thing here. Get a good shot. Zoom in. Cameraman, zoom it. We got the WWE, WWF Legends Classic Cage Playset. As you know me, I'm going to be calling it WWF throughout this video because that's what it was for me, and that's what it was during the era that this particular piece of history existed. We're looking at the Mattel WWE Legends Classic Cage Playset with their old school ring with the red, white, and blue ropes and that big, beautiful, giant blue bar steel cage. Like I said, this was a great thing for me to find. As a kid, I loved steel cage matches, and I especially loved WWF style steel cage matches. We'll talk about the history of that in just a minute. But yeah, I happened to be walking around Target and I saw this for, I think, about like 30 bucks or something like that. I had to jump on it immediately. As you know, I'm a huge ring mark. I try to get a ton of them. I have ones, I've got the LJN ones from the 80s, I've got the Hasbro ones, I've got the Toy Biz ones, I've got the Jakks ones, I've got the TNA ones from Toy Biz. So yeah, definitely a big fan of toy rings. Actually did a video a couple of years ago where I unboxed and assembled that Hulkamania ring you see me use in a lot of my action figure reviews, but our crack production staff kind of sat on it and lost it, so I don't know what happened. It got sucked into the Phantom Zone. If we ever find it, you'll get to see it. It's a shame. I worked hard on that one, but it is what it is. So this will be technically the first of a series where we unbox and reassemble some of these rings. I have a couple other ones that I've been waiting for the right opportunity. So yeah, this guy represents a really awesome part of history when the WWF, throughout the 80s into the late 90s, this is what a steel cage would look like. For you youngsters who are only familiar with the mesh and the chicken wire, or whatever you would call it, this is how the WWF would put on a steel cage match back in the day. I love the photo on the front. You know, you got Hogan and Andre, Bret and Perfect. I don't know if Bret and Perfect actually had a steel cage match. I know Hogan and Andre did, but yeah, some nice choices there for characters to show off Big Blue. Bret did have some really epic cage matches. I just don't off the top of my head remember with Mr. Perfect, but either way, great stuff there. Really great representation of the kind of things you can do. On the back here, you see another glamour shot. The artwork is simple. The packaging is very simple. You know, it basically shows you what you get with the set. And that's about it. Doesn't show off anything else in the line. Doesn't really give you too much detail. But I mean, it tells you what you get. You get the ring, you get the cage, and that is what you get. So Mattel looks like they did a really great job with this set. I'm excited to pop it open and try it out for myself. First, I want to talk a little bit about history like I love to do. I'm a student of the game. Always was. I was born into this shit. So let me tell you a little bit about Big Blue, as those wrestling fans of a certain age like to call it. The history of steel cage matches in the WWF is what we're going to talk about. Alright, so for those of you who don't know, we're going to take a quick brief detour into history. Steel cage matches have been part of professional wrestling since 1937. First one, I believe, was held in Atlanta, Georgia. I don't remember who the participants were, but ever since then, steel cage matches have been used to settle feuds, grudges. Basically, when two guys hate each other that much that there's no way to contain it, you put a cage around the ring and let them scrap. So they were a big part of professional wrestling all throughout its history, and in the 80s we started to see a little bit of a wave of change when it came to how steel cage matches were presented. Traditionally, they either used chicken wire or regular chain link fencing that you'd find at your playground or even in your own backyard, like we have. I'm sure you do. You know, a lot of yous. So, but that's what they would do. Sometimes it'd be a cage roof, sometimes open roof. Didn't really matter. But yeah, the theory was you'd put two guys in a cage and there could be no interference, no shenanigans, no matter what happened. One guy was going to win, one guy was going to lose. They were usually really violent, really bloody affairs that appealed to wrestling fans in that really primal way, especially back when everybody thought the stuff was real. You know, a lot of the fans were a little more bloodthirsty back then, before they were in on it, you know? So they loved it. They loved seeing two guys just ram each other's heads into that fence until they were all chewed up and bleeding and everything like that. It was considered to be the most violent and ultimate way to end a feud. There was no coming back from a cage match. So that was the appeal of it, and obviously it worked because they're still doing steel cage matches today, almost 100 years later. Now, when Vince McMahon Jr. started his new approach to wrestling, when he took over for his dad in the early 80s, he wasn't as big a fan of the traditional steel cage match because they looked shitty on TV. They've worked around it now. By now they cut holes in the fence for the cameras and they shoot it from overhead, which is kind of cool, and they've come up with very creative solutions. But for the first 50 years, it was very hard to put a steel cage match on television because they just did not look good. It was hard to get a crane shot from overhead back in those days, so you had to shoot it from the side, either in close-up or far shot. The wide shot, you couldn't see anything. I feel so bad for those people in the arenas back then who paid their $10 or $20 to go see a cage match, and they would basically not see much of anything, you know? It was really rough. So yeah, presentation-wise, it was difficult. So for a while, there were a few iconic WWF steel cage matches, definitely. A lot of them with Snuka jumping off the roof. We all know those stories. But they were mostly house show affairs, by and large, because Vince Jr. just didn't like the way they looked on TV, so they didn't do it for a little while. Then, WrestleMania 2, 1986. Hulk Hogan versus King Kong Bundy was the first appearance of what we affectionately call Big Blue, the bar steel cage, with the door and all of that good stuff. So obviously this was a huge, huge change from what people were used to insofar as the presentation of a steel cage in a wrestling setting. So there were a few reasons for this. There were some kayfabe reasons, aka bullshit reasons, and there were some real life reasons for it. And everybody's got an opinion on better, worse, good, bad, what have you. So on television, when they announced that the main event of WrestleMania 2 was going to be Hulk Hogan versus King Kong Bundy in a steel cage match, it was the end of this really long, violent feud. Bundy had broken Hogan's ribs. They stretchered him out. Hogan came in with the ribs taped. There was the amazing promos and the build-up with him doing pull-ups with the 100-pound weights hanging off of his weightlifting belt to show he was in great shape to take on Bundy in the cage. So there was a lot of hype surrounding this. But there was also some concern because of the typical and traditional presentation of a steel cage match. The visuals being bad, but also Hogan already had a bad knee. Him and Bundy were not your average, sized guys. They were not Magnum TA and Tully Blanchard. Let's put it like that. So there was concern about how the match was going to look on television in front of millions of people, but also they wanted to do some big dramatic spots involving guys climbing the cage and getting knocked down, fighting on top of the cage. And you got these two huge dudes, and neither one of them is ultimately super athletic, right? So how are you going to have them climb a chain link or chicken wire fence? How are you going to have them climb that? So they sat down, Vince and Hogan, and probably a few other people too, and they came up with this solution of completely redesigning what a steel cage looked like in a professional wrestling sense. No more chicken wire, an actual steel cage with these giant thick bars. And this was going to allow for multiple things to happen. The cameras could now shoot through the bars, and you'd have a nice clean shot that would look fantastic on television, which it does. And also, both of these gigantic men can now very easily, just like climbing a basic rung ladder, they can climb to the roof of this thing and slug it out and get thrown off and knocked down and not have to worry about losing their balance, right? It's literally a gigantic ladder set for these guys to hang off of. So it was brilliant in its own way, right? So on television, in the build for this, and at the event itself, if you watch the match and you hear Jesse Ventura say this, the kayfabe reason was that they needed a special, reinforced, rebuilt cage. Only this kind of cage could contain Hogan and Bundy. These two masses of human flesh going at it full tilt would not... That was not something a regular chicken wire chain link steel cage could contain. Hogan and Bundy needed the big blue bars, otherwise it just wasn't going to work. So that's how they sold it to us, and it did make sense, especially if you were a little kid. You know, it really put it over as this huge, innovative thing. And obviously, there was something to it, because this became the default style of steel cage in the WWF for the next decade plus. They did not phase this cage out until they brought in Hell in a Cell, and even then, for a little while, they still kept the bar cage in circulation. They just spray painted it black, partly because it was so old, the paint was chipping, the blue was chipping off, and it was the Attitude Era now, so they said, screw it, let's just make it black, because everything's black and grr and all that. So blue was out, black was in. They still kept the cage for about a year or so, and then they finally retired it, and ever since then, everybody does the chain link again, so they're back to the basics. Everybody's always had an opinion on this kind of cage, Big Blue. I'm of two minds of it. I see all sides of it, and I definitely see the pros and the cons. Traditionalists and fans of the chain link cage will say that everything about the Big Blue bar cage is wrong. Specifically the fact that it's built around the high spots of getting knocked off. They find that contrived. The fact that the rules now, in a traditional steel cage match, it still ended in pinfall or submission, just like a normal match. You just couldn't escape the cage and nobody could run in to help you. Whereas in the Big Blue cage, you could now win the match by escaping. Originally, starting with WrestleMania 2, that was the only way to win a WWF steel cage match, was by escaping the cage. Some people hate that. They say that it makes the match all about running away. Brett and Owens' match actually did a good job telling that story, whereas the entire point was to escape the cage. But another way of looking at it, and what many of these matches did actually execute, was the premise of just beating your opponent so badly they can't chase you. That's another way you can choose to look at it. You know, if you beat the guy bad enough, he's not going to be able to stop you from climbing out. So, you know, in a way that's even more brutal than putting his shoulders down for 3 seconds, right? So it depends on how you look at it. Some people, from a practical standpoint, said that the bars actually hurt, whereas the chain link doesn't. Or it doesn't hurt as much. But yeah, a lot of wrestlers over the years said that getting thrown into the bars of Big Blue was not fun. And I do believe them. It didn't look like too much fun. It looked violent, it looked real, it looked great from a fan's perspective, but I wouldn't want to take it. So I hear that. On the flip side, the chain link, you know, when I was a kid, I had a hard time believing the NWA WCW style of cage match, simply because we had a chain link fence in my backyard, we had one on the playground, and me and my buddies would horse around and play wrestle, you know. You'd whip each other into the steel cage and bash your head, and you'd be like, this doesn't actually really hurt. It's like, you know, you'd feel it, and if it didn't have, like, you know, some of them have rubber on them, but if they didn't, yeah, maybe you get nicked on the burrs or whatever, which you didn't want to do, because then you got the hepatitis disease. But you know, the point was you could run into a chain link fence and bounce off it with your back, and even as a kid, you'd be like, that doesn't actually hurt. So when you'd see Ric Flair get thrown into it and sell it like he just got shot out of a cannon into a brick wall, when you're that age and you want to believe wrestling's real, that kind of shit doesn't help. When you could just go out in your backyard and do what the guys are doing on TV. Don't try it at home, but we all did. When you could do that and be like, oh, that doesn't hurt, it kills the illusion. So, from a mark standpoint, I liked the big blue cage better because it looked like they were actually getting hurt, which they were, which is not actually the point of wrestling, we know. But, you know, I'm just saying from a kayfabe sense. The chain link was always a little harder sell for me. However, Heenan used to put it over good by saying, you know, those little burrs could get you and cut you open, which is true. So don't do that, kids. Don't be stupid. But, yeah, like I said, I love a good steel cage match. Doesn't matter. Whether it's War Games, whether it's Hell in a Cell, whether it's traditional, I love a good steel cage match. So if it's chain link or the big blue, doesn't really bother me that much either way. But what I will say is that in the 80s and 90s, what I loved as a wrestling fan was that this style, this visual here, made it perfectly clear that you were watching a WWF steel cage match. You could tell, even before you knew who was wrestling, you just saw that cage around the ring, and, you know, it could be a photo in a magazine. You could be like, oh yeah, that's a WWF steel cage match. You instantly knew what you were looking at, and brand identity is something that's always been very important to that company, right? So, having that kind of thing, that kind of specialty match, and having it be so verily identifiable with your brand right from the beginning is huge. So I'm a little sad they retired it, because now their cages are pretty much everybody else's cages too. It is what it is. But I have so many fond memories of this cage that I'm so glad they're still making toys of it now. Because when I was a kid, most of the cage matches I watched were Hogan versus somebody, and they were in this cage. And God, so many great matches. Hogan versus Bundy, Hogan versus Andre, Hogan versus Boss Man, Hogan versus Boss Man on Saturday night's main event. I still remember coming downstairs after my so-called bedtime, which I never followed, but I come downstairs and Saturday night's main event happened to be on the TV. And Boss Man was in the ring, and Hogan was coming down to go fight him, so I had to stay up and watch it now. And that was the time when who was standing on the ring steps waiting to stop Hogan from getting in, but Zeus. And, you know, he smashes Hogan right before they cut to commercial. And God, the way they hooked you into watching the show back then, mwah. And then the match itself was fantastic, including that amazing bump where Hogan superplexed Boss Man off the top of the cage, which was something you never saw back then from anybody. But definitely not in 1988 or 89, and definitely not from guys who were over 300 pounds. You never saw guys take a suplex bump off the top of a cage. Come to find out, that wasn't even the only time they did it. They were doing it on a house show loop. Blew my mind. But yeah, this is the stuff you remember from being a kid, you know. That was one of the biggest things anybody had ever done in wrestling, so that was a huge moment. You had the Hogan-Andre cage matches. My first memory of seeing wrestling on TV, as a matter of fact, was a cage match between Hogan and the Iron Sheik on TV, but that was most likely the regular cage, because that would have been in 84, 85, definitely. I would have been real little, but I remember it, because I remember Hogan jumping him at the bell and choking him with his headband and throwing him into the cage, and Sheik coming up all bloody and stuff. That's the first wrestling match I ever saw. So that's, from then on, what made me a Hogan fan and a wrestling fan and everything else. So yeah, steel cage matches create vivid memories. Because I would have been I couldn't have been more than 2 years old, but I still remember that. It's amazing. And that wasn't even the big blue cage. The most memorable finish probably of all time in the big blue cage had to be Hogan versus Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff on Saturday night's main event for the title. That amazing finish where they each grab a side and start climbing, and then they both hit the floor at almost the exact same time, and you've got Ventura arguing on no, Hogan's knees are bent, Orndorff's are straight, Orndorff clearly won the match. Whereas when you watch the tape, you could tell that Orndorff's were straight because he hit the floor later and he hadn't absorbed it yet. That's why his legs were straight. He hadn't crouched and stood up, whereas Hogan was in the middle of standing up. So yeah, Hogan won, but that was a great way of, this is nice work. Jesse always had good mic work. But yeah, that was probably the greatest finish, or non-finish, because they restarted the match. And then you got Danny Davis and the other ref pushing each other and all that stuff. Oh my god. Wrestling used to be great. It's awful now, but it used to be great. I'm not ashamed to say it. Wrestling's terrible now, but it was great back in my day. I know they all say that, but it's true when I'm telling you. When R-Double says it, you can take it to the bank. But yeah, that Hogan-Orndorff steel cage match, we still talk about it today because that's a finish that was so perfect. I don't think anybody's even tried to replicate it because you couldn't. There's no way you could do that again and do it better than they did it. So yeah, with thanks to this specific cage, back in the 80s, the steel cage match was considered Hogan's specialty match because pretty much nobody else got the benefit of having this match in this beautiful cage. They would usually put Hogan in there with somebody to end a feud, and then Warrior after that. Warrior had a ton of matches in this cage with Macho King Randy Savage. Famously, they did the house show loop, where Warrior would fight Savage, and then Sherry would run in and try to get involved, and then Warrior would grab her and rip her dress off, and she would be there in the skimpiest lingerie you ever saw, which, 9-year-old me liked a lot. It took me a little while to understand why my dad was so into Sherry, because when I was little, Elizabeth was the clear winner, but my dad would always be a little, whenever he'd see Sherry, and then I saw that, and I got it. When I saw Warrior do that, I was like, oh, now I get the thing with Sherry, okay. But yeah, so that was controversial. They actually got in trouble for doing that finish. They got yelled at. They got a lot of letters. So that's part of why they switched the program from Warrior and Savage to Warrior and Slaughter. But anyway, that's a whole other tangent. But yeah, so that's another memorable thing that happened in the Big Blue Cage. The Warrior and Rick Rude's SummerSlam 90 main event. And by then they were starting to tinker with the rules a little bit. From then and onward, you could also pin your opponents or make them submit to win. But you still only ever saw anybody escape in a WWF cage. But they were starting to kind of tweak it to be more NWA rules, in a sense. So, yeah, and of course we talked Owen and Brett had their fantastic match in the cage. So much history. So, and they've been doing toys of this cage for as long as this cage has existed. When LJN had the WWF license back in the 80s, they put out their steel cage ring playset, which I finally got a hold of one a couple years ago, thanks to Funkenstein Wrestling Superstore, Englishtown Flea Market, Englishtown, New Jersey. They hooked me up with one that they took in from a collector. And yeah, that was the first ever toy of Big Blue. And I was very disappointed Hasbro didn't give us one. In the 90s, when they had their amazing WWF Superstars from Hasbro line, they gave us an amazing ring, but no cage. So that was a bit of a bummer. That actually got me to like WCW for a hot minute because Galoob, who had the WCW toys, their ring came with a cage. It was this big red bar cage, so it looked nothing like the actual WCW cage. You could tell they were copying the WWF, but they made it red instead of blue. But it was great. So that became my new default cage, ring, because it had the cage gimmick on it, which as a kid to me was huge. I don't know why Hasbro didn't do it. But then, yeah, Jakks Pacific did it, and there's been many, and now Mattel's getting in on the action, and I couldn't be happier, because getting to recreate moments like this is something that I dreamed of as a kid and still do as an adult, From the outside, it looks beautiful. I can't wait to take this thing open and start fiddling with it. There's some perforations on the back. What they want you to do here is pop the back of the box open and take the parts out through that. I am not going to do that because I'm probably going to save this box, or try to anyway, because it looks so nice. So I'm probably just going to open it at the flaps. So we're going to build the ring. We're going to stick the cage on it. We're going to see how some of the figures look. We're going to take a look and see. You know, we got a couple different scales. But spoiler alert, they're all probably going to look pretty good in this guy here. The box shows what looks like, at a glance, they look like elites to me. Going by the articulation of them, if you look at these figures, I don't think those are ultimates. I think those are elite figures. So, basically, the elites are somewhere scale-wise between the basics and the ultimates. There's like a little bit of variance in between. So, spoiler alert, I'm pretty sure all your figures are going to fit great in this ring. But we'll find out in a minute. So, we're going to finish this guy here, and then we're going to open this guy here, and then we're going to have a little fun. Stick around. Alright, so I was able to preserve the artwork by popping the box open at the flap. So, let's take a look at what you get. Guinness. That's an adult beverage right there. So, probably pretty similar to what you get with any ring package. Yeah, pretty much the same. Cool. Instructions, very important. Oh, that feels like ring posts and decals. It's ring posts and decals. Alright, so we got the box. Set that off to the side here. Alright, so yep. If you're anything like me, you've bought plenty of wrestling rings in the past, so you know what's going to come sliding out of that box here. You got your packet with your ring posts. These made the ring posts and turnbuckles all a solid piece of plastic like they used to do a lot back in the 90s. You know, some rings, they have it be separate, but they make it all one piece here. They got the ropes wound around one of them, pretty cool. This is probably going to be a really quick and easy assembly. And you've got the decals here with that throwback logo they use to represent that era. Obviously not the real WWF logo. I am sure that very soon in the future, interested parties will be able to find decals just like this online that actually have the real logo. So, might want to do that. I'm definitely thinking about it. Nothing against this logo, but again, to me and fans of my era, it's the WWF, and always will be. And seeing this logo is better than nothing. I like it. It's the best you can do under the circumstances. So I love it for that, but when I see this old school throwback stuff, to me it's not perfect unless it has the real classic WWF logo. So, you know, I'm pretty sure these decals will be available online with the old school logo. For now, these will do, for sure. You got your instructions showing you how to put all this stuff together. Just like when we were kids, although these rely more on pictures than words than the ones we used to have. I remember the ones back then, they used to take up a lot of space telling you exactly how everything was going to go together. Yeah, now they just show you, which is pretty cool. So we've got our cage pieces here. Oh, wow. Yes. Already a huge fan. Already a huge fan. So you've got your cage pieces. So these are pretty nicely sized here. Yeah. And so they kind of clip together at the corner area. Pretty neat. If you remember, the old Galoob cage had pegs at the bottom. The San Francisco Toy Makers WCW ring and cage sets would do the same thing. They would have pegs in the ring that would help the cage stand up. You would just pop the cage pegs into the ring apron and it would stand like that. So this basically is just going to hug the ring posts, I think, which is another way you can do it without breaking up the ring apron. So that's pretty cool. So you got your 4 steel cage pieces there. Excellent, excellent. And you've got your ring platform here, your squared circle. And this has already been assembled like a lot of Mattel rings are. It's got like a springy platform underneath, which is great. I love that because it's going to help your figures bounce back when they get slammed. I'm just kind of looking at the insides of it to see how it works. I'm sure there's like maybe a little spring or something in there. I don't know. I've never taken one of these apart to see how they work, but a lot of Mattel rings will have that. They got some give to them. Not like when we were kids, the rings would just be a hollow, air-blown plastic shell that would be in the shape of a ring, and the surface would be static with no give. So it's pretty neat how now they've gone in this direction, where WCW Toy Biz line had a ring similar to that, where you would cross the elastic bands under the ring apron, and then Jakks WWF did the same thing, and that would give you some spring in the ring. So that was really cool. So yeah, this is a really cool ring setup. I can't wait to put this together. But so yeah, that's what you get. Not a lot, but more than enough. You got your ring. It's already been pre-assembled with the springy parts. You've got the cage that's going to snap together really easily. You've got the ring posts. The rope's already attached to one of them. The decals. You got your corner hooks for the cage. And just to make the whole thing dummy-proof, you got your instructions. Beautiful. All right. So we're going to come back in a second and actually start putting this thing together, and I can't wait. I can't wait because, for one thing, I'm a huge wrestling ring mark. Always have been, always will be. Every time I see a toy wrestling ring at the store or at the flea market or anywhere, even if I don't buy it, I have to pick it up and look at it, you know? A lot of times when I go to Funkenstein Wrestling Superstore at Englishtown Flea Market, Englishtown, New Jersey, Funkenstein has a lot of great rings. They have custom rings, they've got vintage rings, they've got rings from obscure toy companies that only came out in other countries like Mexico and Japan, and they've got bootleg rings. They're a great place to go to get toy wrestling rings. And like I said, whenever I see a new ring, even if I don't buy it, I have to pick it up, get my hands on it, admire the feel of it, see what it's all about. And I don't buy all of them primarily because space is a factor. I generally, at this stage, just try to get one ring per toy line, if I can, because it just makes things easier. I want to put as much stuff out and mess around with it as I can. And, you know, so if I bought every ring that Mattel put out, or Toy Biz had put out, or Jakks had put out, totally impossible. So I have a few great rings. I've got the Jakks real scale WrestleMania ring. I didn't get the WrestleMania 2 ring with the cage, though. That's one of my holy grails. I see that go for a lot of money now. I have the original 1980s LJN ring with the cage. I've got some San Francisco Toy Makers cages. I've got some... I had the Galoob cage. I'm looking to get that back in the collection. But I haven't had a new one in a while. I haven't picked up one of these in a long time. The last one of these I picked up, God, I don't even remember the last time I bought a ring with a cage. So this has been a long time coming for me. But also, I finally have another ring I could use in my action figure reviews when I'm reviewing old school WWF figures. I can use this ring now instead of my Hulkamania ring, which I still will use for certain things, but, you know, now I have a wider array of things to play with. So, yeah, we're going to be back in just a second. I'm super excited. You know, so happy I found this at Walmart the other day, or Target, rather, Target. Cut that. So glad I found this at Target the other day. But, yeah, we're going to be back in just a minute, and we're going to actually put this thing together step by step to show you how easy it is. If I can do it, you can do it, baby. So, we'll be back. Alright, so according to the instructions, the best thing to do is put the decals on first before you assemble the ring. That actually makes sense because you're going to have to pop these ring posts into the corners and all that stuff, and, you know, it's going to be harder to put the center sticker on if you're reaching over the ring ropes and all that stuff, so makes sense, right? You're going to want to do the stickers first. I'm not fantastic at stickers, but I don't mind doing them. We're not going to do all of them, but right now on camera I'm just going to... So you just peel them off there. You got your sticker, you got your ring post. If you remember back in the day, they used to have the logo on all the turnbuckle pads. So they were all about branding. They still are, but I don't know how much they still stick to that. So obviously, you're just going to kind of want to center. I fucked it up. It's fine. I fucked it up, but it's fine. Nobody's going to ever know. They're not going to notice or care. So you're going to want to try to center it on the turnbuckle pad. As you can see, I fucked it up, but it's fine. You know, nobody's going to really care. But that's the idea. You know, just peel them off. Sticker is not quite the same shade of blue, but it's pretty close. You know, unless you got the flash on the camera while you're taking a picture, you're probably not going to notice that the blue is a different shade. But that happens sometimes when you do it with the flash. You see all the little variances. Yeah, still crooked a little bit. I'm not great with the tiny stickers. Let's try one more. See what we get here. It's tough because, you know, they're small and you got to hold the ring post with one hand and kind of put the sticker on with the other. That one came out better. Alright. One down, 3 more to go. So yeah, that's what the general idea is here if you've never done one of these before like a doofus. Yeah, you just stick the stickers on there and now it looks a whole lot more better, as we used to say. Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, 3 more ring posts to go. We'll do that while we're taking a break. But yeah, super easy, man, you know. And that brings me to another tangent real quick before we break. I've actually seen people online talk about buying rings like this and play sets like Snake Mountain and Castle Grayskull, and they're like, yeah, I like to, you know, sometimes I like to buy one of these and not open it. I like to buy a fancy-ass play set that looks beautiful and fun and just not ever open it or mess with it at all. And you know what? I want to drink beer out of your empty fucking head. What kind of asshole are you that you would buy something like Snake Mountain or Castle Grayskull or this ring and cage and be like, well, I'm just going to display it in the box? Like, you're an asshole. Now, on one hand, seeing as how some of the back market prices have skyrocketed on a few of these items, I could sort of understand wanting to hold on to one if you're going to sell it later as an investment, because as we've seen, yeah, I've even seen Jack's WWF rings from the late 90s or mid 2000s that go for like over $100, and, you know, okay, I can kind of see that. If you want to buy something for $20, because you know it's going to be worth $100 later and you can flip it, almost understand. It's almost not worth it to me anyway for that kind of a pittance of a turnover. But at the same time, like, dude, this shit's meant to be played with, alright? Somebody went to the time and trouble to make this shit for you, and you're gonna let it rot in a box on a shelf until the end of time? At least take it out and display the box, like, you know, just Jesus. Not opening it? A playset? It's called a playset. What the fuck don't you understand? I mean, this is offensive to me. This is goddamn offensive to me. I know I'm going off here, but seriously. Even action figures keeping them boxed, I only barely understand, and I pretty much think it's kind of ridiculous, but a playset. I buy playsets, but I don't open them. Like, I mean, do you just go through your life edging on everything? Just in that perpetual state of blue balls? What's wrong with you? Didn't your parents love you? Open your fucking toys. For God's fucking sake. We'll be back. Alright, now we got all 4 ring posts with all the stickers on all the turnbuckles. Pretty cool stuff. Yeah, some of them didn't get on there perfect. A lot of them are a little off-center, a little crooked. I don't really care. They're on there, you know. That's what it's all about. Don't be afraid to put them on there or your toys. If it's not perfect, who cares, right? So, yeah, that's the first one. So then, next. Now. So next we got this one here. Oh boy, it's gonna make me a little nervous. Big ones like this, these are noticeable if you screw them up. So you got your big circular Middle logo there. A lot of the old Jax rings had a sticker like this, like a big circle. I wonder why I choose circle and not square. Well, I'm sure there's some focus group tested market reason for it. Alright, gotta be careful with the big sticker. If you screw this up, you're kind of screwed. Alright, ain't too bad. Ain't too bad. Like usual, the circle they leave is bigger than the sticker, so you got some wiggle room on that. So, yeah, it's not perfect, but, you know, good enough. Pretty good. You know, it's never going to be really all that visible because it's going to be laying flat with, you know, figures on top of it, so it's fine. You know, I'm not going to stay up all night crying about it being a little bit off-center. Like, you know, it's like, get the fuck out of here! Yeah, so, yeah, that just leaves the assembly. We got the decals on our ring posts. We got the centerpiece sticker on there. And again, eventually, you know, when somebody makes WWF logo stickers for this, I'll probably just replace these anyway. But that's down the road, so this will be fine for now. So we're going to be back in a minute with the actual assembly, which should be a snap. Ha ha ha. Snap. Fuck you. Alright, so assembly-wise, pretty much the same as when we were kids. According to the instructions, these corner posts should just kind of slide and pop snugly into place, like that. Apparently these even come out. Wow, that's an improvement over when we were kids. When we were kids, these things used to go in and they'd have to stay in. But apparently these will come out. So, alright. Science marches on. Because that was the thing, with most of the toy rings when we were kids, like my beloved Galoob WCW steel cage ring, the tragedy that would befall most toy wrestling rings was broken ring posts, snapped ring posts. It's just the way things were, unfortunately. One way or another, a lot of these ring posts for our toy rings would snap at the base. So the fact that they found a way to make them slide in securely, but also still have some give in case you want to break it down later, to me that's pretty cool. I lost most of my toy rings from childhood to broken ring posts, including some bootleg wrestling rings that would be worth a nice amount of money now if I still had them. Not that I would ever sell them, but it doubly makes me wish I still had them. There were some, you know the old bootleg wrestling guys that looked like He-Man figures. They were all squat and muscly, and they had the same pose and articulation and everything. And they would come in 2-packs. Like they'd always have one Hulk Hogan ripoff, and the other guy would be like fake Iron Sheik or fake Andre the Giant or whoever. I had a ring for a bunch of those figures, and that got snapped, and that's worth a lot of money now. I'll look up what the name of that was, but yeah, most of my toy rings I lost to snapped ring posts. So the fact that these go in snug, but they can also come out without too much force, I call that a win. You know, design improves as we go on. Great job there. Love that they were able to come up with a nice solution for that. That's going to definitely help people over time, you know, when it comes time to move, or even just move your display. If you want to just pop the ring posts out and, you know, flatten it out, put it back in the box if you want, or whatever have you, that's going to definitely come in handy. I wish the toy rings we had as a kid were so modular to make the ring posts slide in and out so easily. Because, you know, they got like a hook grip that goes in the bottom there to catch what's inside, so that's cool. But it doesn't do it so firmly that it's forever. Back in you know, the 90s and mid 2000s, when you snapped one of these guys in, it was forever. You know what I'm talking about. So yeah, and it's not like they're gonna accidentally pop out either. You do have to kind of pull them to make them come out. But if you're careful, they will not snap. So great job, Mattel. I know I gush a lot, and I know maybe I come off like a shill sometimes, but I'm not. I genuinely love Mattel. I love the quality and the thought that they do put into their products. Everything they do evolves, even within their own lines. Like, if you look at a Mattel ring from probably 10 years ago, they're probably not as nice as this one. They probably have a lot of the same mechanics and clockwork, but, you know, everything gets better the longer it's out. The only thing I'll say about the ring itself, the apron is too smooth. It almost, like, they made it wavy. They made it wavy to kind of look like the skirt of the ring apron, so that's kind of nice, but it's too plain. I am definitely going to be hitting up somebody online and getting some stickers. Might be WrestleMania, might be something else. We'll probably do a revisit video when I do that. But yeah, the one negative I'll say about this ring is it's a little bare because, for one thing, even though it's wavy, the plastic is too flat on the sides to really simulate a ring apron. So it doesn't even really do that well. Now, the wrinkling on top actually does a great job of simulating a ring skirt. Like, you see how well sculpted that is? Like, that's good. That's a nice little touch they added, but sadly they didn't extend it down the actual side of the ring itself, because even though it is slightly wavy as far as the mold, you can't even really see it. It's barely there. So I'm definitely going to go online and get some stickers for this bad boy, because then it's only going to look even better. I'll probably get some WrestleMania stickers, but even if not WrestleMania, maybe Saturday Night's Main Event. Ooh, that's a great idea. I'm going to hit somebody up for sure, because if you're online like me and you look for stuff, you will see there's a lot of great sellers out there that make custom stickers for your wrestling rings, and they can usually make them in any size. So that's my one recommendation, to spice this ring up. Get some custom apron stickers, 100%. But yeah, we're going to be back in a second. We're going to just keep on keeping on. But yeah, so far I'm already in love with it. This is a really cool ring. This is one of the best rings I've seen in a very, very long time. We'll be back in a second. Stick around. Alright, so first you're going to need to unspool these ropes from the middle turnbuckle. It took me a while to find out where they were ending at, but yeah, if they're anything packed like mine, if they're packed the same way, they're going to be wrapped around the middle turnbuckle, so you want to kind of carefully stretch them. Be careful to stretch them over the turnbuckle, and then they all kind of unspool like that. You're going to have to do that first because they're all kind of wrapped together. So yeah, I recommend doing that before you pop this corner post in. But like I showed you before, they do come right out if you're careful. So it doesn't matter. But yeah, unspool the ropes before you put the ring posts in. The instructions don't tell you that, but I'm telling you that. Take the ropes off first. Save yourself a lot of aggravation. And then you can slide that ring post in there like that. You're in business. Okay? So another familiar setup, even though they already did the first part for you. Okay, they already put the ropes in to the first turnbuckle for you. So that's pretty good of them. Thank you, Mattel. Get the ball rolling for us. So, God, these classic red, white, and blue ropes they used in the 80s and 90s. I miss that shit. Saturday morning, WWF All-American Wrestling. So, just like in real life, you want to start at the bottom. If you're like me, you ever had to help put a ring together in real life, or if you were ever wondering, you put the bottom rope on first, and then you go middle, and then you go top, and then like the stress goes distributed towards the top as you assemble it. It's, you know, if you do it once, you get what I'm talking about. So the ropes just slide into the turnbuckles like this, which is very cool. Very easy to do. Obviously, other rings have a more realistic setup, such as the Jakks Classic Superstars real scale ring, which was gigantic, and it actually had all the individual pieces of the turnbuckles and the corner posts and all that stuff. That ring is wild. I'm going to do a video on that one day, because I do have that ring, and I love it to death. It's got its own canvas and everything. It's the most realistic ring I think I've ever seen. But this will do in a pinch, my buddy. And so, yeah, you go bottom, middle, top, and these rings are nice, and these ropes are nice and snug. Mattel has done a great job with giving us some ropes that have some snugness to them. Actually, well, that might, depending on your perspective, might even be a little too snug. They don't necessarily have a ton of give. But at the same time, I'm going to have this out more for display than play. So I want them to be really firm, and I want them to last a long time. I'm not going to be bouncing my figures all over these ropes. I wouldn't say they're not really too tight. They're snug, though. They're definitely snug, for sure. There's good and bad to that, obviously. I would advise your kid to be careful with it, because like any other Mattel toy, you should give it to a kid. But at the same time, be careful. Tell them to be careful, because these ropes are pretty snug. They will loosen up like anything else, but at the same time, you don't want to wear them out. That's always the danger with toy rings, too, is that the ropes will wear out. And then you got problems, right? But these are really snug. I think they're going to last a while, depending on how rough you play with it. So here's the fully assembled ring right here. Here's a top-down view of it. Just give you an idea. So we got the whole thing put together. As far as the ring itself, great job, Mattel. This thing is a snap to put together. It's a breeze. Back in the day, you'd probably have to put the spring under the apron yourself by running the elastic bands and all that stuff. Mattel already went and did that for you. They already had the ropes threaded through the one corner post. That corner post has locks on it. The other ones don't. But the base corner has locks inside the turnbuckles to keep the ropes in place. That's really cool. Whereas the other turnbuckles, as you can see, they have an open hook, and they just thread through like that. They just hook through. So yeah, very cool thing Mattel did there. Now, if you ever have to replace the ropes, that might be kind of a problem. You'd probably have to cut them. And then with the replacements, depending on what kind of ropes you get, you might have to solder them, you know, like, or use like a clip or something. But that's a problem for the future, not right now. Right now, these ropes are really good. They're really tight. Not too tight. They are very tight, though, I will say that. Tell your kids to be careful not to make them sag or snap or anything like that. But yeah, they're going to look great on display, that's for sure. So we're going to be back in a minute with the cage part of the setup, but I already love this ring. I have been holding out on getting a Mattel ring for a long, long time because this is my favorite style of ring WWF ever had. The red, white, and blue ropes, the classic logo. This thing's begging for some WrestleMania or Saturday Night's Main Event stickers. Oh, man. It's begging for decals on the apron, though, that I will say. It's a little plain without them, but even on its own, it's a great ring. Thumbs up. Without the cage, even, it's a great ring. I probably would have bought this anyway, but for the extra, I don't know, it's like $28 or something like that. I threw the receipt away. But yeah, it wasn't too much money for a ring with a cage. Definitely pick it up if you see it. We haven't even assembled the cage yet. But yeah, I'm already saying I got my money's worth because I'm going to be using this ring a lot. I'm going to be using it for display. I'm going to be using it for my action figure reviews. And that's before we even get to the cage. So yeah, huge thumbs up from me. Mattel hits another home run like they usually do. What can I say? You can call me biased and I won't argue with you, but I love Mattel. I've had my hands on a lot of Mattel products lately, and, you know, I just got to call it like I see it. From the day I was born to right now, they've done some of the most amazing toys I've ever played with or seen. So, yeah, another thumbs up for Mattel giving us this beautiful classic-style ring, and now the classic-style cage. That's the real money shot, baby. Ew. So, we'll be back to take a look at that, Jack. Stick around. Alright, we talked about how awesome the ring part of this playset is, but now we're going to talk about how cool the cage is. And I looked at it a little bit, and I gotta say already, this is probably the coolest cage I've had and played with so far. Haven't put it all together yet, but I love what they were going for here as far as the build and the mechanics of it. Mattel is a very, very good company as far as adapting and trying to evolve certain concepts with playability and things like that. I mean, this is a far cry from what we've had when we were kids, I'll tell you that for nothing. And it makes me sad, again, that Hasbro, with their amazing WWF line, they never gave us a cage for their amazing WWF rings. So, sorry Hasbro, Galoob had you beat there. But yeah, this is the kind of cage I would have dreamed about having as a kid. So you get the 4 basic cage pieces. You know, your 4 basic rectangle bar play sets. And, you know, as long as you're careful, these should hold up. These should be pretty sturdy. Just don't try to snap them in half, right? So you get 3 of those. And one with a very important addition to it, the door. This is something I don't think we had when we were kids too much at the time. You didn't often have a door on your steel cage, so it was strictly over the top exit. So the door itself holds in place with this tiny, tiny little notch of plastic up top there. So that's what holds the door in place. You can kind of just push on the tab to get it to open. So it's really cool. Doesn't take a lot of pressure to pop open, but it does hold pretty snug. Now, if you're at all concerned about that wearing out, because sometimes things do, the more you play with it, friction, you know, well, it's already a little bit looser than when I opened it the first time. So if you're at all concerned that the door will not stay closed on your steel cage playset, I would suggest getting even a twist tie or a small piece of chain, and you could just, like, you know, jewelry chain or whatever you can get for $1 at any hobby store, and you could pretend it's the chain they used to tie the door shut with, you know, during the actual cage matches, if you want. If this does wear out, it should hold up for a pretty long time though. So looks pretty good to me. I dig it. So they really went the extra mile in giving you the door on the cage. So now, according to these instructions, you're supposed to put the cage together as a separate piece and then attach it to the ring. So, as you can see, you're pretty much expected to snap all the cage pieces together with these corner pieces here. You're going to hold the cage together with the small ones, and then this big loop is going to slide down around the ring posts. So that's pretty cool, because if you remember a lot of the old steel cage matches from back in the day, early on they used to take a huge intermission and wall up the cage, but then later on they would have it already built and hanging from the ceiling, and they would lower the cage. WCW, with their cage, they used to do that from the beginning. They'd have the cage hanging up from the roof all night, and then they'd set off fireworks, and they'd lower the cage down. So yeah, you're going to do that here. You're going to assemble the cage, and then you're going to lower the cage itself down onto the ring. So that's pretty cool. So it looks pretty simple here. So the door, simple as that there, you know, bada bing. So you're going to have the corner hooks just kind of snap in there at the narrow piece. It's pretty snug, actually. It's giving me some fight. It's going to get in there, though. One way or the other, I'm going to get it in there. There we go. Alright. So it just snaps on like that, and you're going to end up putting 2 of them on, apparently. 2 per side. But yeah, so then it just kind of goes together like that, essentially. So yeah, like that. There we go. Alright, good stuff. So yeah, I'm going to put this guy together, and then we're going to show you the full thing, and then we're going to attach it to the ring. Awesome. I'm excited. Alright, so this is a really cool construction that Mattel gave us with this steel cage. What you want to do at each corner is just take 2 of these guys here and just put them on at the thinner indented lower part of the cage. Okay, and then up top here they already have this built-in clip that just kind of pops together like that, and then it holds really snug. Great construction here from Mattel. This cage is going to pop together super easy, and it's going to hold up to some serious play. Yeah, really good stuff here. Like I said, you just take one of these here, and it just kind of pops right on there. You just take 2 of them right on that right on that thinner part of the cage. You see where it gets thinner there? That's where you want to pop these on. So it's super easy to do. They go on like that. And you want to make sure, see that groove there? That little tunnel? That's going to be on the inside of the cage. Alright. You want the solid part of the frame on the outside. You want that indented part on the inside. Okay? That's what you're looking for there. So yeah. Super easy to do. All you got to do, make sure you got the indents on the inside. Snap those clips on there. And 1, 2, 3. Of course, 3 is gonna. There you go. 1, 2, 3, just like that. So it couldn't be simpler, really. Awesome job. I mean, yeah, it takes 2 seconds to do, but so far so good. That's how easy Mattel made it for us to put this cage together. Excellent job. We're gonna be back in a second with the whole thing, and then we're gonna stick it on the ring and see how cool that is. Stick around for that. Woo! Love it. Love everything about it. Alright, so here we have the fully constructed cage. This thing feels really sturdy because you have the 3-clip system at each corner. You know, you got the external, the two extra clips, and then the cage clipping to itself on the top. So this is a really sturdy construction here. It reminds me of a crab trap. I used to go crabbing with my dad a lot back when I was a kid. We used to go catch crabs, which was awesome. If you've never done that, do that. This thing reminds me of a crab trap. Yeah, it's awesome. So yeah, good job here. Now, supposedly, this is just going to spin around so you can see the door. Supposedly, this is just going to slide down on top of the ring itself with these corner clips sliding over the ring post. So we'll be back in a second to see how well that works. But yeah, so far I love the ring and the cage. I love the construction. I love the way Mattel put it all together. Let's see how well it gels. Collective Soul. Yeah, so let's see how well it gels. We'll be back in a second. Stick around for that. We're going to try and see if it works as well as it should. Hopefully, because I love it so far. Alright, so what you're going to want to do here is just kind of line up the wide part of the corner clips with the corner posts themselves, and then you're just going to kind of gently push down and just make sure they stay close to the posts there, and kind of push forward on it as you do, and they should slide right down. You got to kind of do it one side at a time. But yeah, for the most part, it's a little snug, but it works. It's an interesting way they did it here. That bottom one kind of hugs a little tight. It's a little tight the more you go down. You got to just take care to make sure it stays hugging to the ring post. But yeah. You just push on it a little bit as you slide it down, and it should be no problem. Goes all the way down to the bottom, just like that. Just push on a little bit to make sure it's on there nice and snug, and you're in business. Yeah. That's a really great way of doing it that Mattel gave us there, because it goes on and comes off real easy. And it holds really well. The cage itself has a little bit of give, so if your figures get thrown into it, it's going to have a little bit of spring. But I wouldn't advise banging it around too hard or anything like that. But yeah, this is probably the most realistic steel cage setup I've seen on a playset. To me, out of all the ones I've seen, just insofar as the cage itself, not talking about the ring, but the way they built the cage here, to me, seems the most realistic to the actual way they do the steel cage. And especially having put a few together, helped on the ring crew and things like that. Yeah, this goes together really well. And you got the door right there for the figures to come in and out. The one thing it's missing is a set of steps. set of ring steps. It is kind of a low ring for that, but I will say this cage itself will fit on any ring of this size that has similar ring posts. It should, anyway. You know, as long as the ring posts are of the same diameter and all that, the cage should affix to them just the same. So if your ring is the same size as this ring, the cage should work on it. So if you have a higher ring, for example, you know, the apron's a little low, but I still think if you could find a set of steps or something, that would kind of complete the whole thing. The ring itself is begging for decals. We can get those for $5 on eBay. Yeah, love the door. Love the way that everything hugs so snug. Definitely a big fan of this ring and this cage. Great job, Mattel. The way they put all this together for us, you know, the only thing I would change, I would have included some stickers for the ring apron. Anything would have been better than nothing in that regard, just because the ring apron is so plain. That's one thing I would change. The other thing is I would just make the ring apron a little bit higher, so a set of ring steps from another playset would look good next to them, because it's a little short. But it's not bad, though. As a matter of fact, I mean, if it was any higher, I would say maybe like a quarter inch at most, you know? It's not bad at all. It's not bad at all. I would really, if I would only change one thing, I would just give you the stickers for the ring apron. Everything else, to me, is pretty much perfect. It's a nice, sturdy build from Mattel, like you always get with any Mattel toy. It's definitely going to hold up to some play. I wouldn't try to kill it or bang it around or anything like that, but it works exactly as it's supposed to. The cage slides right onto the ring posts, and it holds really firmly, and it's going to hold together really well. The ropes are really snug. What more can you ask for? The ring's got nice spring. A+. Great job. Really glad I bought this for whatever the heck I paid for it. It was less than $30, I know that. It was between 25 and 30, I think. And for a ring and a cage that looks as good as this and functions as good as this, I'd say that's a total bargain. I love it. I mean, you know, with a couple more bells and whistles, they probably could have gotten away for selling this for more than they did. So, but for me, you know, sub 30 is right in the sweet spot for a fantastic ring and an amazing steel cage. Excellent job. Only thing we got to look at now is how do the figures look inside this baby. I can't wait to see that because I love the ring and I love the cage. I love Mattel WWF figures, as in FU. I love Mattel WWF figures. How do they look inside this beauty? Well, I guess we're going to find out, aren't we? Alright, so we saw how awesome the ring and cage looked on its own. How do they look with the figures themselves? That's probably the most important part, right? How do they look with the toys themselves? Well, great, but ... So here we are with some basic scale figures. WWE Mattel Basic. Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. We talked about these figures before, and these figures scale perfectly together, but inside the ring, you could tell this is definitely not to scale with the old school WWF rings, the 20 by 20, I believe. This ring to these figures, this ring looks more like an independent ring, like 16 by 16. Definitely. It's not bad, it's just noticeable because WWF was always known for having a huge ring. So even with basic scale figures, the ring looks more like a WCW ring than an old school WWF ring. You just have to point that out at the outset. It is not to perfect scale. Not everybody's going to give a shit. I certainly don't. Some people will. A lot of people nitpick scale. And I do understand that, but at the same time, it's toys. I don't necessarily think we have to be oh so serious. So yeah, this is definitely not to WWF scale. It could be a little bit bigger. I mean, for example, the Jakks Classic Superstars WrestleMania ring, that thing was huge. That is probably the greatest toy ring ever made by far, and we will talk about that one day. But for a sub $30 ring with steel cage, this is about as good as you can expect, and I'm certainly not crying about the scale. I'm not crying about the scale. I'm just pointing it out because it's a fact. It's a little bit smaller than it should be if it were to true scale. Some people will care, many will not, because look at it, it's fucking awesome. Look at this fucking cage and this ring, and you got Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. And, I mean, this is what pro wrestling was in the 1980s, and if you don't get a kick out of this, then you're out of your fucking mind. This is amazing at any scale, brother. This looks great to me, Jack. And, you know, the fact that you have a nice sturdy cage build, you have a strong ring with nice sturdy ropes, you have the door, which is an accessory that is kids. Most of the rings didn't come with, so that's a nice little bonus there. And that's nice and snug. You know, even though the ring itself is maybe a tiny bit smaller than it should be, if you give this to a child, they will not care. I promise you that. If you bought this playset for your kid or your nephew or your niece or whoever, if you bought this playset for a child for their birthday or a holiday or whatever, they will love you forever for this one thing, I promise you. Because I sure would. Looking at this thing right now and seeing these two figures inside of it, man, this brings me back to when I was like 6, 7, 8 years old. And if somebody had gifted me something as majestic as this back then, I wouldn't have been nitpicking the hell out of it. I would have just been loving the shit out of it. And that's what I'm doing right now. I mean, this is amazing. You know, you can get into the minutiae of it, but definitely look at the upsides, man. This is a great build, the way the cage holds together. It's more to scale than not. I mean, you know, you put on...
Sorry. I didn't think it was going to happen.
It's more to scale than not. You put Andre in the corner, and, you know, he's about where he should be. It's just the length of the ring, right? Not necessarily even the height of it, you know? The height of it is good. Again, I like that the ring itself has some spring to it. You know? As far as the height of the cage in respect to the wrestlers, I think it's really good. You know, you used to hear Vince McMahon and Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse Ventura talk about the 15-foot high steel cage. And, you know, that was a huge part of it. And, yeah, it definitely scales well. The height of everything scales perfectly. Ah! Squirrels fucking? So the height of everything scales really well, almost perfectly. It's just that the ring itself, the dimensions of the ring itself could be a little bit longer. But as it is, I don't give a shit. I think it's just about perfect to me, Jack. I think it's as close to perfect as we've gotten, you know, within a reasonable price point. Like I said, I don't have the Jakks WrestleMania 2 ring with cage. That's one of my grail pieces that I hope to pick up one day. I have the WrestleMania ring, not the WrestleMania 2 with the steel cage. I hope to get that one day. But as of now, as of right now, this is my favorite ring and steel cage playset that I've owned. I've had the Galoob one, which is a masterpiece in and of itself. I look forward to one day having that in my collection again so we can talk about it. But I loved it as a kid, and I can't wait to have it again. I had the San Francisco Toymakers WCW ring and cage. I got the ECW ring and cage. I've had a few ring and cage sets in my day, right? But so far, to me, this is the best I've seen. I love the construct of it. I mean, I'm sure there's others that are, quote, better. But, you know, at a reasonable price point, for under $30, how could you argue with what you get here? This is a perfect representation, a replication of the classic Big Blue cage from the 1980s. It is as close to perfect as it gets. It's going to hold up to some serious play. Or, you know, even if you don't play with it, just displaying it. I mean, how could you argue with this? I already have an order in. For some ring apron stickers, so they're going to be here in a few days. So we'll probably have a little codex or whatever. Codex. Where's the codex? Sorry, Man of Steel moment there. A coda on the end of this video. where we'll show you what this ring looks like with some custom stickers put on it. That's going to be really cool. But that's the only thing missing, really. If I could change only one thing about this ring, it wouldn't even be the length of the cage, the width of the cage. If I could change one thing, I would have thrown in a couple extra stickers. Put something on the ring apron. That's the only thing I count as a flaw. Not even the scale of the ring. Because to me, that's negotiable. For under 30 bucks, this is about as close to perfect as you can get. It's majestic. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. I love almost everything about it. I mean, this is amazing. If you give this to a kid, they're going to love you forever. But as an adult, man, I went to Target looking for absolutely nothing that day, and I came home with this thing. To me, that's what this hobby is all about, man. Any day of the week can be Christmas if you let it be. It's like Agent Dale Cooper said, every day, every single day, you should give yourself a little present. And it can be a cup of black coffee, slice of cherry pie, or a Mattel WWE ring and steel cage playset. You know, in this case, I'm very glad I went to Target that day. So, as we see, the basic scale Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant action figures scale amazingly inside this steel cage. I mean, it just doesn't get any better than that. So, how do some other things look? Well, you know, I don't have everything available at hand right now, right? And plus, different figures are in different height, even within their own scale. So we have a Hogan and Andre in basic scale. So, let's see, just for the heck of it, we've got the Mattel Ultimate WrestleMania 1 Hulk Hogan. There we go. So you see how he looks inside this cage. So again, you got the two extremes of Mattel scale, right? You got the basic, and you have the ultimate. And even though, I gotta love Mattel for this, even though it's technically two different scales, look how close together they are. They really didn't deviate much insofar as how tall they made their Hulk Hogan figures. So that's really good. Mattel is very consistent. Even though the scales themselves are different, they still want to present the characters as close to being the same as possible. So, great job there. But I just wanted to show you that if your basic scale WWE or WWF figures look good inside this ring, your Ultimates probably will as well. I don't have any Elites. They're all back over on the shelf right now. So I just had the basic and Ultimate scale available to kind of show off, but you know, you gotta figure, right? If your basics look great and your ultimates look great, your elites are gonna look great too. By any stretch of the imagination, though, all of your 6.5 inch, whatever scale wrestling figures are gonna look amazing in this ring. That's just the way it is. So I just wanted to kind of show that off for you people who do care about scale. You know, it's not exactly perfect, but as a playset or even a display piece, you're going to definitely love it. Because, you know, everything looks great in it. Just the general aesthetic of it. And even just for the sake of it, just for the hell of it, I'm going to throw a little bit of Jack's... You got Jack's Classic Superstars WrestleMania Hulk Hogan there. You know, just to... there's fucking stray hairs on him. Just to kind of show you how any of your wrestling figures are going to look amazing inside of this ring and this playset. Yeah, the Jax figures, they're weak ankles. That's their biggest downfall, probably. Aside from the horrendous attention to scale, the weak ankles. But everything else about the Jax figures, I still think is cool. But yeah, so you see, your Mattel Basics, your Mattel Ultimates, your Jax Classic Superstars. I would say any of your wrestling figures. If you wanted to put Toy Biz in here, or you wanted to put the old school Jax figures in here, go ahead. I think they would look amazing. So for you people who wonder about display or whatever, this would be a great piece no matter what kind of WWE or WWF or whatever type of action figures you collect. It's a great ring. It's a great cage. It's a sturdy build. The Jax Hogan has weak ankles. That's just the way it is, brother. Ow, my knee, brother. I've had 27 surgeries because I body slammed Andre Giant when he was 900 pounds, man. You know, what can you do? But yeah, man. Like I said, Mattel really knocked it out of the park on this. You're going to find these at Target. Apparently they're a Target exclusive, I think, from what I read. But, yeah, for less than $30, you absolutely cannot go wrong with this playset, with this ring. You get a ring and a cage, and it's going to look great with all your old school figures. If you're sleeping on this, don't. If you're hesitant at all, don't be. This is a great addition to your action figure collection, whether you collect Jax, whether you collect Mattel Basics, whether you collect Mattel Ultimates, whether you collect Mattel Elites, whether you collect all of it like I do. All of your WWE or WWF figures are going to look amazing with this ring and cage playset. It goes together in 5 minutes or less. The decals are easy to put on, you know. The only downfall is that there are no stickers for the ring apron, and I already found people online selling them. Mine are going to be here in a couple of days, so we're going to show you what that looks like as a little addendum to this video. But yeah, I don't see how it gets much better than this. This is about as good as it gets for me. Mattel really hit a home run, a grand slam with this old school ring and big blue cage playset. Unbelievable. Great job, Mattel. Thumbs up, high five. I'm in love with it. You know, you got all the little things. You got the door, you know, the cage clips right on, so snug and so secure. And I would give this to a kid and feel good about them playing with it. But even just as a display piece, I think it looks great. You can see the figures well enough within them, you know, without, you know, you can see them. They look great on display. Not like some of the other rings where it can be a little hard to see. These are really good visibility here, you know. But if you do play with it, it's going to hold up to some nice play, because Mattel, like they always do, they plan for that, and they give you a really solid construct and a really good design. This is one of the most well thought out steel cage playsets I have seen, and I've seen a lot of good ones. Maybe this isn't the best I've seen, but for the price point of under $30, it's definitely way up there. And again, the scale itself is perfect for almost any of these action figures that you collect. And, you know, it just doesn't get much better than this. I'm so glad I went to Target that day and ran into this. It was on the bottom shelf, so maybe that's where you look for it. I don't know. It was on the bottom shelf. They had like 3 of them. One of the boxes had a big dent knocked out of it, so that's why I didn't pick that one up. But I grabbed this one, and I'm so glad I did. You know, you and your kid, or just you by yourself, can put it together in 5 minutes and start having fun with it, you know. Or you can just put it inside your shelf and pose all your favorite action figures inside of it, and they will look absolutely amazing. Mattel, gotta love you for this. Great job on this old school throwback ring and cage playset. This is exactly what I wanted my entire life, and I'm so glad to have it now. This takes me back to being a little kid watching Saturday Night's Main Event, watching Hogan and Boss Man or Hogan and Orndorff or any of that stuff, man. And that's what it's all about, bringing that old school back to the new school. So we're going to wrap it up when we have the stickers on this thing. That's going to be a little PS. That's going to be a little extra work that I had to do that Mattel didn't do. But, you know, it is what it is. For what you get out of the box, still got to love it. You know, maybe you like it this way. Maybe you like it without anything on the ring apron. That's cool. You know, if you like it that way, that's fine. I got some custom decals coming, so I'm excited about that, because to me, that's the only way you make this better. The only way. Look at it. It's fucking beautiful. Man, if you're like me, if you're of a certain age and a certain era, and you grew up watching some of the best matches of all time happen within the confines of the big blue cage, the unforgiving big steel cage, brother, you know, watching Hogan and Orndorff, or watching Brett and Owen, or watching any of that stuff, Warrior and Rude, you know, being able to sit down with your kid or by yourself and just, you know, reenact some of those classic moments, You know, it's everything we would have dreamed of as kids, but blown up bigger and better, you know, than we had it back then. Man, this is for I still can't believe looking at it. This to me, if I saw it for $50, I'd even say that would be acceptable. But, you know, for under 30, don't sleep on this. Definitely pick this up. Go to Target right now and get this thing before it's too late. Because you're going to pay more later on. You're going to end up paying $100 on eBay for this a year from now, I promise you. Definitely pick it up now while you have the chance. That's all I can say. What do I think of it? A+, thumbs up, high five. Don't sleep on it. Get it now. Right now. Alright, rock stars, before we wrap it up, I wanted to give you a quick update. So just like I said I was going to do, as soon as we wrapped filming on the first part of this video, I went ahead, looked around on eBay, and I found somebody selling custom stickers for this specific ring and cage, and so I went ahead and ordered a set, and man, I gotta tell you, I couldn't be more thrilled. So I went ahead and I got WrestleMania, classic vintage old school WrestleMania logo for the front and back side of the ring apron. I think that looks pretty badass. That's the way it looked back in the day. That's what I grew up with, and I'm going to roll here. And I went with Saturday night's main event for the east and west part of the ring. Reason I chose these two was because back in the day, in the 80s, the only two places you were likely to see this kind of cage match on TV was either WrestleMania or Saturday night's main event. You had a lot of classics like Hogan Bundy, Hogan vs. Orndorff, Hogan vs. Andre. You had a lot of classic matches in this big blue cage on WrestleMania, Saturday night's main event. A lot of good stuff happened. So I went with those two specifically to keep it simple. And I gotta say, the seller was awesome right from the get-go. He was really good at communication, and he sent me a whole catalog of stuff to look at. Dude has a ton of different logos that you can put on your ring. WCW logos, classic WWF logos. You can get one of these rings and do it up any way you want, which is really exciting to me. This dude is awesome. He reached out to me right away. We were talking, and I told him which ones I wanted, what color backgrounds, all that good stuff. And, you know, he couldn't have been better about all that stuff. And, like I said, he showed me a list of all the different stuff he has on offer. And tons of great stuff. Not just vintage WWF, modern WWE. You've got AEW stuff. You've got NWO rings. You've got, you know, WCW stuff, NWA stuff. Dude has it all. And if it's not in his catalog, he could probably whip it up for you. So definitely check this dude out. I'm going to put the link in the description for the video because I think those decals really add that extra layer of class and majesty that this ring and this cage really deserves. Now, I thought I was only getting the ring apron stickers. I thought that's what I was getting, but this dude went the extra mile and threw in some extras like vintage WWF logo turnbuckle stickers in different sizes. Small, a little less small, medium, large. So however much of it you want visible on the turnbuckle, that's pretty cool. Tons of options there. Vintage WWF logo turnbuckle stickers. And center ring stickers for both the vintage WWF and that new faux vintage logo they use for WWE. The color background matches the actual ring mat portion better, I think, so that's pretty cool. And just if you want a little more contrast, the guy threw in same logo with a blue background if you don't want it to match the ring apron or the ring mat at all. If you want it to really stand out in the center, he gave you these blue ones again with the vintage logo and the faux vintage logo. Pretty cool stuff. One of these days, I really am going to go back onto this ring and kind of take off the ones that came with it and put these on for that really authentic, classic, vintage WWF look. But yeah, that was a cool bonus, getting those stickers. I thought I was just getting the ring apron stickers, but he threw those in too, so that was really, really awesome. Price was great, shipping was fast. Link is going to be in the description. I think it really completes the look of this majestic vintage Mattel WWE/WWF classic old school ring and cage. Love it to death. Now it's even more perfect. It's going to be perfect once I switch the rest of the stickers around. But I wanted to give you guys the heads up on what it would look like if you went ahead and did this. No reason not to, in my opinion. This is the way to go if you want to go authentic vintage with this ring. Now, when I originally got this ring at Target, it was about $30, but then as soon as I finished making the video, I went back and I saw they put it up to about $40. So, get it for what you can. Like I said, I got it right in the ground floor. I guess they were cheaper then, but they have gone up a little bit. I still think it's a great value for what you get with the ring and the cage. I think $39.95 or so is a really great bargain. Keep your eyes out for them. I'm still seeing them every time I go to Target, so I guess they're selling well because they keep putting them back in stock. So get your hands on one any way you can and get yourself a set of these stickers for 10 or 15 or whatever they are and really make it shine, make it pop with that authentic vintage feel. So this has been a really fun video to do because I love this ring and cage set. It's one of my favorites in my collection now, and it's going to look great with some more figures in it for display or play, even if you want to mess around like a big kid. That's cool too. Nothing wrong with it. But so yeah, this has been awesome. Looking forward to getting my hands on some more Mattel stuff so I can put this guy to good use. You're going to be seeing a lot more of this in the future, I promise you. Till then, Ricky Rocks coming at you from the vault saying, see you next time. If you can't be good, be bad, baby. Take your toys out of the box and fix them up like I do. See you soon. Not soon enough. One love, baby. Mwah.